guys, welcome to Shakespeare with Sarah, where I break down Shakespeare for actors. Today I am breaking down Iago's "Thus Do I Ever Make My Fool My Purse." I had a request from Balance Hunter to have a look at this one, and also that Cassio loves her, I do well believe it, and I'll look at that one in another video, and when it's uploaded I will link it for you here and here. In this video I'm going to talk about Iago's character, his objective, which is a big one, and also the context for the monologue, and I'm going to break down all the meanings as well. So if you want to just jump straight ahead to meanings, all of that will be time-stamped below so you can jump to the part that is relevant for you. So let's start with character and how it relates to Iago's motivation. What's my motivation? Now, this is massive. And if you've ever studied Othello, if you've ever heard anything about Othello, one of the big things about the play is that we don't really know why Iago does what he does. So if you're thinking of doing anything from Iago, you need to actually make the decision for yourself. And what I recommend is that you actually think more like a director than an actor. And by that I mean, I want you to think about the whole play. So what are the themes of the play that you think are coming to light, particularly in this monologue that you've chosen, but also just generally, what is it that you want to focus on? Is it about jealousy? Is it about race? Is it about toxic masculinity? It's up to you, and because you are actually an actor, you can pick something that feels relevant to you in your performance. You don't have to think like you're writing an exam. This is not English. What I want you to think about is, what are you bringing out in this monologue? And if you're not sure yet, don't stress. I think it will start to reveal itself as it goes along, but do generally just think more broadly. You want to think about, like, what do I think this play is about? What do I want it to be about? What do I care about? These are the choices we can make as actors that really make things more powerful. Rather than ticking a box that someone has set for you, what do you care about? What do you think it's about? Make conscious choices and do your research. So for this, I highly recommend you need to read and watch the entire play. So find a production online, go and find a DVD, if such things exist in the world still, and watch it multiple times. Watch different interpretations of Iago, because there are a lot of different interpretations. Watch interviews with people who have played Iago. Go and do your research, because everyone has different takes on it, and you can choose and make it something that's powerful and relatable for you. So for some actors, they like to choose that jealousy as a really big motivator for Iago. He talks about in this monologue how Emilia has maybe slept with Othello, and I'll break that down more when we get to the meanings. But I want you to decide, is that the main thing for Iago? Is it actually that he is torn up by jealousy because he genuinely loves his wife and thinks that she has been sleeping around? Or, as some people argue, is that actually just kind of something that he says because it seems like a reasonable reason for him to hate Othello? It could actually just be rubbish that he's saying, that it's actually got nothing to do with that. In fact, he just hates Othello because he's black, or he hates Othello because he passed him over for his promotion. All of those things are options, but you need to think about it and choose. I personally don't think Iago is aware of his own motivation. He is a very smart guy, sometimes the smartest guy in the room, in the sense of being quick thinking, but he is emotionally immature. He really does not have a lot of self-awareness in that way, I don't think. So you're in a tricky situation where you need to decide as an actor what you think is going on for Iago, and then as the character, not be aware of those things. They have to be kind of layered underneath, but you still need to kind of think them through. It's tricky. Iago is a tricky character because of those things. I think what's useful is the struggle. Whatever's going on for him underneath, he's working so hard to repress it. He's repressing his jealousy or his hate or whatever it is. There's something within him that is deeply insecure and kind of fragile that he does not want to look at. That's the layering that's going on underneath that you can repress. Think about, what are the things that press his buttons and have that in the back of your mind at all times. They're little memories that make him feel angry, that make him want to fight, that want to shut down all the emotions that are inside him. So let's jump now into context. What's happening in this scene? And before I do, can I just remind you, I would love you to subscribe. If you are doing an audition, maybe for drama school, I'm going to be doing a lot of audition prep content coming out soon. So do subscribe so you see that coming through, and I can help you with all the verse speaking and all the kind of monologue prep that I recommend. This is Iago's first soliloquy of the play. His soliloquies are really, really important because they reveal to the audience what's really going on. I saw an actor in an interview talking about how if you watched Iago's scenes with other people without his soliloquies and asides, you wouldn't even know what he's plotting. He's such a good actor and manipulator that whenever he's with other people, he's just switched on, he's lying, he's manipulating, and you as an audience, you would never actually clock on to what he's doing, apart from the fact that he tells the audience directly. So something that you need to understand is that in his soliloquies, he's completely open with the audience. The audience is his ally. And so think about who are you talking to in the audience. You would probably, as Iago, be making eye contact with the audience. So in an audition situation, you can ask your panel if you can make eye contact with them. It can be a little bit off-putting. So what I would actually recommend is just imagine a couple of focal points where you're like, okay, so there's like a guy over there that I'm talking to that's like about my age that understands what it's like to feel jealous. And now I'm talking over here and I'm talking to a woman and I'm going to be kind of critical and dismissive or whatever. So use the people that you're imagining in the audience to help you connect with the text. Iago never lies in his soliloquies. Everything he's saying is the truth as he knows it. So even as you begin, there's a sense of discarding the kind of mask that Iago puts on and moving into the real Iago, which is manipulative and cunning and kind of gleeful about that fact. And that's the context here, really. Iago has been helping Roderigo kind of win over Desdemona, and Roderigo is upset because Desdemona went and married Othello. And Iago's like, ugh, bugger, because I was getting Roderigo to like pay me to go and do stuff, to like go and, spy on them or win her over with, things that Roderigo has said, kind of woo her for him, that kind of thing. So he's been milking Roderigo for this money, and he has somehow managed in this scene, even though Roderigo now knows that Othello and Desdemona are married and they've seen that they're definitely connected, Iago's like, oh, but Roderigo, they're going to go to war and Desdemona's going to go with him, and when there's battles, he's not even going to be able to pay attention to her. She's going to see what he's really like. She's just going to feel like, oh, this is not the Othello I know, and not want to be with him anymore, and then she can be with you. So this is the stuff that Iago tells Roderigo. So he's like, go and get your money, we're going to figure this out. Roderigo's been like, I'm going to drown myself, where? And Iago's like, nah, come on, man, you can do this, and kind of buoys him up. And as soon as Roderigo's gone, he's like, what an idiot. So even in this very first line, thus do I ever make my fool my purse, there's actually a lot going on. So here's some context for you. A fool was someone that entertained people with their kind of witticisms and that kind of thing. And they were usually given like a little tip for doing so. They were given a little bit of money. So Iago is like, firstly kind of bragging about how he's always manipulating, I think, Roderigo, but I get the sense that because he's saying, do I ever, it's sort of saying like, I'm always doing this. It gives the audience an insight into actually this is his behavior all the time. He's always tricking people and kind of getting money out of them. So normally a fool would be paid. And he's saying in this case, actually, not only is this guy entertaining me because I'm kind of playing on him, but I'm also managing to get money out of him instead of paying him for the entertainment. So in that first line, he's setting up a picture of what his life is like. How many people does he normally manipulate? And how he kind of lives, I guess, how he gains extra funds, how he gets more money in his life by getting it from others, by tricking them. In this one line, he is already setting himself up as like the smartest guy in the room, which he sort of is. But interestingly, in the next scene, when Desdemona arrives and she's waiting for Othello and it's all the kind of soldiers milling around, she's kind of getting Iago to be the fool in a way. She gets him to kind of make like witticisms about, you know, her beauty and her attractiveness and blah, blah, which is, thanks for what you do for women, Desdemona. In that moment, Iago's wit is kind of just used for entertainment. So I think that would be a sticking point for him. Iago deeply wants to be recognized, I think, for his proficiency, for his intelligence, but he's not. Maybe because he's not really trustworthy. And he has a lot of judgment, I think, about people's intelligence. He thinks he is the smartest guy in the room. And in some ways he is. And I think it's not easy for him to be treated just kind of as a fool. And he goes on to kind of expand upon how smart he is here when he says, "For I mine own gained knowledge should profane, if I would time expend with such a snipe, but for my sport and profit." So he's basically saying, my own gained knowledge, so I, all my smarts, basically, all my own intelligence, I would be kind of doing myself a disservice, that should profane, if I was just hanging around with such an idiot, that's Snipe, but for my sport and profits. So if I wasn't getting something out of it, like entertainment and money, I would really be doing my intelligence a big disservice because I'm so smart, basically, kind of puffing out his chest here. And interestingly with him, there's no modesty. He just genuinely thinks he is a really intelligent person, which is not a bad thing in itself, but what the problem is that he just thinks he's smarter than everybody else. And that, I think, in some ways is his downfall, because I think he maybe just doesn't think anyone's ever going to catch up with what he's doing because he's so smart. He goes on straight away to say, "I hate the Moor." Now, notice that that is the second half of a line. Generally, what we try to do is not take a big pause in the middle of the line, but keep your pauses mostly for ends of lines where possible. So actually, he's already going on to his next thought, which shows us already how much he's a really quick thinker. He's immediately going on to a separate thought. "I hate the Moor." And now he tells us why. "And it is thought abroad that twixt my sheets he has done my office." So that basically means that there's a rumor going around that Othello has slept with his wife. Interestingly, he uses things like "has done my office." So that's all very like soldiery kind of language. So if you think about how he operates in his life, in his relationships, it's all very like, this is my office, like my husband position, that's my job, and Othello has kind of encroached upon my job. What is really interesting here is the word "and." He says, "I hate the Moor and it is thought abroad." So that's a separate thing. So it's not "I hate the Moor because there's a rumor going around that he slept with my wife," but "I hate the Moor and there's a rumor going around that he slept with my wife." So that is actually, that one word is one of the reasons that people are like, "Oh, it seems kind of like an afterthought. It seems like you hate Othello, maybe for some other reason. And also you're trying to justify it in saying, oh, he slept with my wife." So it's up to you whether you decide it's an afterthought or whether it is actually a key motivator, as I talked about before. And you're really going to have to spell that out in your delivery, whether it's like a really big moment for you where that jealousy is really sticking in your gut, or whether it's more like an afterthought, like, "I hate him. And, there's a thing about him sleeping with my wife." And now on to my next point. So you can play that, all right? Very important here. "I know not if it be true, but I, for mere suspicion in that kind, will do as if for surety." So basically, I don't have any evidence for that, but just even having suspicion of it, I am going to act as if it is true. So he's just decided, even though there's a rumor, he's just going to go ahead and just kind of ruin Othello's life. And that's another big reason why people think, it seems like maybe there's something more going on other than the rumor about the infidelity. It doesn't take much for him to decide that he's just gonna ruin Othello's life. Now, he holds me well. Again, this is a half line, so notice here how often he comes up with a new thought in the middle of a line. This is very tricky to play because you still have to let the thought land. He's thinking about, okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and do this, and then he says, he holds me well, meaning that Othello trusts Iago, he holds him in like good esteem, and that's going to actually make it easier for what he's doing. It's going to make it easier for him to kind of prey on him because he trusts him. So while you're thinking about, okay, I'm just going to go ahead with this because I'm just going to treat this as true, whether it's true or not, the next thought for you is, and because he trusts me so much, it's going to be easy. Now, again, another new thought. Cassio's a proper man. Let me see now. So he's immediately gone to Cassio, who he already doesn't like, and he's like, oh, hang on. You know what would be good idea is if I involve Cassio in this as well, because he took my promotion, and so a proper man is kind of like, well, he's a like handsome and like well-presented, well-liked, attractive guy. Let me see. And he's thinking. You can see the cogs going round. To get his place and to plume up my will in double knavery. So basically like, so I can take Cassio's position, get that promotion that I was supposed to have, and also kind of let all these things with Othello happen as well in double knavery, meaning like I'm kind of playing like two birds with one stone, basically. How, let me see. Now this is thinking out loud. So you can let it kind of roll out. Always think about, where are you looking when you're thinking, when you're having reflective moments as a character. Our temptation is to look down, but it's not a good acting technique. So find a spot, find a thinking position to stare at. This is part of your rehearsal, to think about your eyeline. I always talk about this because it's important. He has an idea. After some time, to abuse Othello's ear that he is too familiar with his wife. So he's figured it out. I know what I'll do. I will just wait a bit, and when we've got the perfect moment, I will tell Othello that Cassio is too close, so too familiar, kind of being like he's closer than he should be, knows her too intimately, you know, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, with Desdemona. Then he's convincing himself even more of this because, it's a good idea, because he hath a person and a smooth dispose to be suspected, framed to make women false. So he's basically saying here, this is totally going to work because Cassio is the kind of guy that is, you know, very well spoken, all that stuff that he was just kind of saying. He's a proper man. He is the kind of guy that would be suspected of sleeping with someone's wife because he's so charming to women. And next bit, it's an even better idea because the Moor is of a free and open nature that thinks men honest but seem to be so. So he's saying Othello is the kind of person that just, you know, takes everybody on face value. He's very naive or very, I suppose, good-natured, but of course Iago under all that is gonna look down a bit on anybody that just takes people on face value. You know, he thinks Othello is a bit gullible and will as tenderly be led by the nose as asses are. Led by the nose is kind of like leading someone along, and he's used the image of an ass, a donkey, for a reason, because he just looks down on Othello so much. He thinks of him as like as stupid and as worthless as a stupid donkey. Sorry, donkeys. And now he's kind of worked himself up into a state, and he says, I have it. It is engendered. And that is not just like, oh, okay, I figured it out. It is engendered. I think there's kind of a layering on the imagery there is kind of like of conception. And so then when he says Helen night must bring this monstrous birth to the world's light, he's talking about like his plan has kind of been, I guess, fertilized, which sounds weird, and that the devil, it's like a devil's child, and the devil will nurture this terrible plan and bring it to the light. So it is actually a birth metaphor there. And what's powerful about that is, I mean, it's kind of gross and horrible, right? And don't shy away from that. It's a fairly disgusting sort of powerful, raw, dark image there. And what's important about it is that basically he's spoken it into being. With Iago, his words are so powerful that when he speaks, he's like, okay, it's real now. I've said this plan out loud and therefore it is going to happen. But he also, I think as a key thing with Iago, he recognizes that he's not always a doer. He is an interesting character in that he sort of has that little bit of a Hamlet about him, that he needs to think things through, and he kind of holds himself back from action in some ways. I think that Iago sometimes kind of doubts his own power, probably even though he's quick thinking. Outside of war, I think that he's the kind of guy that's like, you know, if he thought that Amelia had cheated on him ages ago, he never did anything about her, he probably never, you know, decided to leave. He's just kind of been stuck in this situation where he is resenting his wife, but he never did anything. And so this final thing is like a call, sort of like Lady Macbeth when she sort of calls on the spirits, unsex me here. It's his call, which is quite a big moment back in those days. If you're kind of referring to spirits and calling the supernatural, that was a very big deal. It was a kind of scary thing to the audience. So actually, I think there's a lot of power in that moment that he's like, I'm siding with the devil and I'm calling them up here to help me with this plan. Immediately, the audience is like, oh man, this guy's not just like a bad guy. He is the devil and he's chosen the devil's path. So that might sound very melodramatic, but it is. He's gone from being this, okay, seems like a bit of a trickster, a bit of a manipulator, to like, oh man, no, he's actually going to rain down chaos on everyone. And that's the first kind of sign that the audience has got that, oh wow, this is going to be a big tragedy. So the journey for Iago is talking to the audience about, you know what, I hate this guy. You know what, and I'm gonna fix this. I'm gonna sort this out. Let me think about, what am I gonna do? Aha, this is what I'm gonna do. Oh, and it's gonna work because of this. Okay, and let's just make it happen. So it's actually a really big journey. So really do find that shape in it, find the low points and the high points so it can build into this enormous kind of earth-shattering conclusion. And that's it for this one. Gosh, it is enormous, this monologue, but there is so much you can bring to it. So I hope you found that useful. Let me know in the comments, and of course, always let me know if you've got any requests, and like, share, subscribe, and I will see you next time.